Remember the days of IBM? Everybody came in and they had their white shirt and their blue tie.
What color white shirt would you like to wear?
Yeah, that's right. And so I think of that when folks were saying, "Okay, time to get back into the office full time," for a variety of reasons that they'll give you. But when you really take a step back and look, I mean, because let's face it, as technology has improved, the concept of remote work or even hybrid work isn't foreign to IT folks. Like I feel like that's just always been there. Thank you for joining us again on the CIO Lifeline, bringing you practical tips and sound advice from the front line. With me, as always, is Tom Doran. Tom, what's the vibe like today?
I'm looking forward to our conversation this evening. So you've got kind of a mixed situation where you're working, huh? Sometimes you're at home, sometimes you're at an office.
That's right. Sometimes I'm on a plane. Sometimes I'm in LA. Sometimes I'm in Europe. Yeah. Well, how about you? Where do you usually set up shop?
Well, when I'm not on the road, which I am on the road a fair bit, I work from my home office in Georgetown, Kentucky, and I asked just because it seems to be a hot topic. What's the right mix for people?
Well, Tom, perfect segue for today's topic, and that is work, on site, remote, or hybrid. One size doesn't fit all. You mentioned how you're on the road a lot, and you told me something that I was actually kind of surprised. 'Cause I know you're just it's just your nature. You're constantly on the road, but was it 180 nights? Wasn't that something crazy?
It was, yeah. Tony, I thought that was crazy, and I ran into somebody last week that was on the road 230 nights. So I decided that I was just busy.
I mean, if you take out the weekends, like what's the year like
You know, I,
280 or something?
honestly, I love what I do, and I don't keep track of it that way.
Yeah.
For me, it's all about results, and really to the topic, right? We have this conversation all the time. So I lead a sales and marketing organization, right? I'm managing for results. I don't actually care where you happen to sit on any given day as long as you're getting the results. If an office suits you, great. If your home suits you, great. If you have the ability to move around, which if you're in our outbound group working with our existing customers, you've got a lot of travel, keeping your customers abreast of what's going on, making sure you know what's going on with them. It just requires you're on the road.
Well, and so the company I work for is part of a larger portfolio of companies. And when COVID hit, there was this mad rush to get everybody working remotely. And for good reason, right? You couldn't be in the same room together if you're in close cubicles. People are putting up plexiglass, and there was just, hey, if you can be remote. Like New York State, there was like this ratio of how many workers can be on site for. I mean, it was crazy. This went through so many permeations, right?
Do you remember when I got kicked out of the state after 3 hours because
Oh
we
my god.
realized I
Yeah.
came from an illegal state?
Oh my god. So yeah, so for our listeners, Tom and I have worked together for many years. And probably what, 4 or 5 times a year, you swing by typically the corporate office in Buffalo, New York, and it just happened to be during one of these COVID times, and I'm not thinking anything of it. You come in, you have your mask on, we're gonna go in a room. So the first thing that hits me in the face is like, someone comes up to me and goes, who is he? And so I explained like, well, he can't be here. Like, what do you mean he can't be here? He's been here for years. And it's, well, because we're in the red zone, red color or something, and we're trying to go through the scenarios, and then we started like bartering with ourselves. Well, what state did you come from? Well, I'm like, we came from Indiana, Notre Dame, and that's okay. And then it's like, oh, wait a minute, you were just coming from Ohio on a customer trip. Well, wait a minute, you reside in Kentucky. I mean, it was this. it was just crazy.
It is. But, as we talk to our customers, we see a range. Some people, COVID, well, all companies, COVID forced you to re-examine what does it mean to contribute within your organization. And some of our customers, and I look at their remote sales offices as probably the most common example. We had many customers that had somewhat expensive real estate, with sales offices. Well, they realize that if there's not a warehouse and there's not manufacturing going on at those sites, yeah, those sites are probably not necessary or could be in a much smaller footprint with, a few desks where if you want to come in and land for a few hours or you need to have a meeting, there's access. And they're saving a lot of money. And frankly, what we're hearing is that their productivity is going up. So, that's one point of view.
IT departments were really put to the test. You've always accommodated on some level. I think I'm speaking for most of us, where people are going to remote in and hit your on-prem servers, your ERP system, and maybe other things that just wouldn't be public facing, right? So you have usually some kind of VPN or some type of secure access. And now instead of it being a select group of folks, it's like the entire organization, right? So this was an all hands on deck for the IT department. But once the dust settled, it was fun to watch how each company then decided, well, what do we do? And then the collaboration tools, Zoom, Team, man, wouldn't you like to have stock, right at that COVID moment in that technology?
I have to tell you, Tony, all by accident. We're an IT company. We do consulting and we have people scattered all over. So, by the nature of how we're organized or disorganized, we've been remote for at least 10 years fully. Um, and
But
so,
then, but isn't it interesting how COVID made it mainstream? I mean,
It,
it
it did, and it
yeah.
suddenly made us experts in how to be remote, right? But I'll give you another point of view because honestly, as the title of this session said, one size doesn't fit all.
Mhm.
So we have another customer, great company, um, and they're big on teamwork. And a lot of our companies, and if you read the papers, they talk about their teams and how their teams are where it's at. And the owner and leadership group of this company said, look, the warehouse is coming in because packages can't be shipped remotely. The manufacturing folks are coming in because we can't manufacture remotely. And we're a team. And so everybody's coming in. And, I'm saying it a little more harshly than it was delivered internally. It was a rallying cry for them. Like, we're a team. We're all coming in because some of us are coming in. I don't know. Everybody's got to find the right balance for their organization.
Well, and all right, so let me pick on that one. Some of those very same companies from pre-COVID, like this wasn't even a talking point. You just came
Right.
to the office, right?
That's right. By 8.
By by 8, right. So let me play devil's advocate on your comment, and maybe it's not devil's advocate so much as, look, we proved that the job can get done. All right. Remote work can work. Let's not forget that there were companies where there was an exodus of folks that wanted to go back to the way it was. It's just kind of like, and it's not like the jobs and atmosphere don't morph over time anyway. I pick on the IBM, but tie was required where I used to work. You know, casual day was removing the tie. Everything else stayed put. You know what I'm saying? Yeah.
Hey, I
Um,
dusted I dusted my suits last week and just went in and said hello.
yeah, yeah. I know. And I bought a couple early this year. My wife's like, okay, why? I'm like, well, my other ones kind of, styles change. She's like, how are you going to wear them? I'm like, all right. Any more good points you want to bring up? Right. But,
That's
but it
right.
speaks to this, and the creativity part comes out because I liked your story. Hey, and I work for a manufacturing company. I can't produce sitting at home. You have to be here. All right. So I don't think it's a binary thing. Either you're all here or you're not here. Why not consider, staggering days? Maybe 4 10s, and you're giving folks on the floor a 3-day weekend. You see where I'm going? Like to me, there's always something or some approach that you can take to find what that balance is, because when you witness the exodus of certain employees or types because company ABC has embraced the remote work or even the hybrid work, how do you compete with that? And think of the converse of that, recruitment. Like once the concept of remote became more mainstream, now I don't have to worry about filling shoes in a particular area of the country. The whole country's, up for grabs in terms of talent. And that can not only can you maybe even get, well, certainly I think the talent pool expands, but sometimes you're not having to pay top dollar depending on the market you're in. Not that people shouldn't be paid fairly, of course, but you see my point.
I do, and there's several things as you were speaking there, but if there was a good thing that came from COVID and a good thing that came from all the suddenly newly remote workers, is that I think it humanized all of us. I was one of those guys. If we were on a call and Tony's dog started barking, I'm talking about 4 years ago, right?
Mm.
Tony's dog started barking, or there was kids in the background, or what, I would be thinking to myself, come on, Tony, didn't you know we actually had a business meeting?
Hmm.
And now everybody's got a dog. The cat jumps in your lap. Kids will run in and you give them a hug and you say, oh, hey, look, it's Tony. Say hi to Tony. Well, that that humanization of work, and you remember in my first comments, I talked about my team. It's about results. It isn't about where you are when you get those results. And
Hmm.
so when we humanize and we acknowledge that, hey, as you said, Tony, some people maybe 3 12-hour days fits. Other people maybe it works differently, or they work evenings and they stagger their work so they're picking their kids up from school. Now we really are helping people honor the values that are important to them and empowering them to drive what in many cases have been better results because they're more committed, because the company has shown that they can be flexible and they're not just adhering to one rigid approach to dealing with their individual team members.
Well, and I like your use of the word rigid, because again, this is not one size fits all, right?
Right.
And I feel like there's still kind of that scarlet letter mindset for folks that are working remote, right? Because if I can't physically see the whites of your eyes in person, then you're goofing off. There's still sort of that, and some of the reasons you'll get, well, there's the water cooler talk, or if you're sitting doing your work, you might hear about a problem that you kind of overhear, and it's something that you can weigh in on, and you can go over and you solve a problem. Well, you couldn't do that. I mean, you can rationalize both sides of the fence, and
Absolutely.
no one's 100% wrong here, right? But if you have
I
an open
completely
mind,
agree.
yeah, and if you have an open mind to this, um, because let me just look at I'll give you an example of like my team. My team is a blend. There's some that have to be in the office every day. So, help desk. Helped, I mean, stuff breaks, cords need run. Someone can't seem to figure out, we have, hundreds of label printers. Well, those things jam up. There's always things in the moment. There's never and that require a physical presence, and that's and they accept that. Now, if they need a day for to do whatever, maybe it's, they have a doctor's appointment, their kid's sick, right? No problem. But that's just a conversation you have with your team and you figure it out. Now, my developers can be full remote if they want. My
Mhm.
preference is hybrid. I kind of like, because I know I'm giving you 40 talking points here, but there is, and maybe it's just how I'm wired. Again, there's no right or wrong answer here, but I think
Well,
if you're 24/7 in the same room, in the same house, I do think like the whole social anxiety. I mean, I think, again, I just don't think it's for everybody.
and I would just there's two things you mentioned there that I particularly like. And one is, uh, first, philosophically, are we going to choose to operate from fear or from faith? And by fear and faith, and I'm not getting spiritual with anybody, fear that Tony has chosen to clean his gutters right now instead of doing whatever Tony was supposed to be doing right
Mhm.
now. Or do I have faith that Tony's a professional? He knows what our goals and objectives are. I'm going to rely on him to get those. And you know what? If he chose to clean the gutters at 2 o'clock in the afternoon on Wednesday because the sun was shining, but he knew that from 9 to 1 a.m., because after he put the kids to bed, he could crush this, he chose to do it that way. So what? And so, many people are still in that fear and control mindset, which I find limiting in general, regardless of what your intermediate results are. And when you have faith in your team and everybody is united behind a direction, and then you empower them with whatever flexibility makes sense in your organization, I think your results will be everything you'd hope they'd be.
Yeah, I like the example you brought up that if it's 9, they choose to work from 9 p.m. to 1 a.m. Um, I'm thinking of one of my developers where I think his best work is at 3 a.m. Yeah, it's that's his zone right now. He's a single guy, and he kind of has that 24/7 flexibility, right? But that structure is his choice. It's up to him, and that's where he's kind of in his zone, and I think his productivity has skyrocketed with that kind of flexibility.
And when you have balance, people don't keep score, right? When you're moving from that fear mindset, everybody's keeping score. Who's winning? Company winning? Employee winning? Who's keeping? If you think about my own situation, right? I still have little kids at home. Got to get them up, get them off to school, everybody dressed, at least two of their teeth brushed. Um, but, in the morning, I get up early. So
Mhm.
I'm up around 5, I'm having my coffee, I'm checking my email, I'm cleaning out email, I'm responding, I'm looking at my Power BI reports to see how we did yesterday, what's the trend for the month. Is that working? I'm sitting on my deck drinking coffee. Am I really working? Who cares, right? I choose to start my day. I'm productive. I'm catching up, setting my day up for success. And because I have that latitude, I don't worry about whether the email was at 5 a.m. or 10 p.m. or 2 p.m. It None of that matters. And I think you just end up with a better mindset among your team, which I think is going to improve their overall satisfaction at work.
Yeah. Now, when I talked about help desk and some of the, I'll call them constraints that, you know, in my mind, it require a physical presence.
Mhm.
Um, what are your thoughts when, like a call center? I mean, I know this is not an IT kind of focused podcast here, but we are part of a larger business with many different departments and many different functions. And if you're promoting yourself to be, an 8 to 5 or 7 to 7 or whatever those quote customer service hours are, I feel like it introduces a little bit of rigidity in that, or am I mean,
No, you're exactly right. I mean, as I said before, we've got to be aligned on our goals and objectives and how we're going to keep score. So we all have a customer, whether that's the ultimate consumer or our internal customer. And so we're in the business of customer service, every single business. That'll be another podcast for another day, right? But we are all in the customer service business. And so if that means that, the person at Hardee's has to be there to make sure that they can get my burgers and fries just right, or that my help desk person, because we have some physical devices within our organization, we have to have some coverage in order to ensure we can service our customer. That's the business you're in. And you have to have balance. It's give and take. But, there is, Tony, they call it work for a reason, right?
yeah,
So we're here for a purpose. The company's paying us for a job, and if the result is that I fix your printer ribbon or I replace your monitor, and I have to be in person to do that, well, then somebody has to be there to cover that.
if I go back to that help desk example, how it morphed and shaped, and it's not hard when you think back on it. But again, we were wired a certain way pre-COVID. It's like, okay, you have a help desk function. Well, that help desk function, that's not 100% physical. There are, I mean, because we have locations across the globe. Well, I'm not hopping
Right.
on a Learjet to go touch my guy in Europe, right? And we have local boots on the ground and on all our places, but there is a segment of help desk that says, "Hey, I'm trying to access this particular file share, and my computer is yelling at me. Can you help me out?" Sure, you can remote in and take care of the problem. Remote in and take care of the problem, right? So if I have a team of 10 technicians, or I don't care if it's two technicians, if the number's greater than one, pretty sure you can figure out, hey, I'm going to do Monday, Wednesday, Friday in the office, or I'm going to do, the two of you will figure that out, or the 10 of you will figure that out. It doesn't have to be the boss mandating it. To me, it's like, look, we're all big boys and girls here.
Well, and you know what else you'll discover? Now, if it's one or two people, it's a little tougher,
Mhm.
but the numbers work in your favor. If you have 10 people, I can just about assure you that somewhere between 2 and 4 of them are gonna wanna come to the office.
Absolutely.
And
Yep.
so the people who like to be remote, let them. The people that wanna come in, let them. And the problem works itself out. As you said, "Hey, guys, figure it out. If you can't figure it out, I'll help you."
In between there, you got a lot of different personalities, a lot of different situations, a lot of different distractions potentially. But you as a leader have to assess each one, and you'll figure it out, right? Because like you said, there are 2 to 4 people are probably going to want to be in the office. I have examples of that where young kids, wife's already working at home. He said it would be 100% distraction. You know, I want to be in the office, no problem. Then you got others that everybody's situation is different.
That's right. Well, Tony, this has been a great discussion. I mean, as I think as our title alluded to, it sounds like one size doesn't fit all. So, what do you think are the two or three most important things for him to consider as we wind our session up today?
Okay, so it's not a one size fits all for sure. You have different personalities, you have different work ethics, you have different drivers, that help. So just be mindful of that. Two, is it a role that is focused on an outcome and not a daily metric? Might be wording this wrong, but kind of weighs in the physical aspects of the job, should there be some, or is it, look, I have this project, we have a deadline, it's Friday, Friday afternoon, and we know what we have to do, and you figure out your own work schedule, right? But you also got to think of what's the culture, what's the company culture here, because you can't be rogue on your department, decisions. I mean, you need to have the support above you. You just can't, I think that there's an element there. Like, so question for you back is, do you think companies need to have a formal policy around it, or is this still an informal, hey, we'll figure it out?
I think as long as your corporate structure allows for a case by case or department by department approach, that's always my general preference. Sometimes you have to have policy broadly in order to avoid, whatever unfair bias or other people get a perk that somebody else doesn't get. But I do think that that should be the exception, not the rule.
Let me ask you something too that I still see companies require this. They require that if you're going to work remote, that your meetings have to be Teams or Zoom, no audio only, and your camera's on. Does that seem overbearing? Does that seem reasonable? Where do you sit with that?
I I actually do think that's reasonable for a lot of reasons. There's a lot of science that says that, if you and I were having a conversation at work, we would see each other, and humans tend to interact more effectively and communicate more effectively when we see each other. And at least within our organization, we're in the relationship business, and so you develop relationships more effectively when you can see the other person.
I think it does cut out any potential distractions. Email is a popular one where you have a group meeting and someone's on a
Right.
thread that doesn't pertain to you, and they're going to ramble for 20 minutes, so I'm just going to get some you know but if you're on camera and everybody's staring at each other, you tend to have a little more attention to the meeting at hand, like you would if you're sitting around the table. And
Right.
I don't think it's unreasonable either. I mean, we're affording you the ability um, to be flexible. I think it's a fair ask. And recruiters tend to ask, do you have a flexible work environment? Now, to me, it's becoming baked in the cake.
It is certainly just about table stakes. You have to be open to the conversation in most cases.
And I've been um, exposed to companies where the entire C-suite is remote for 3 weeks out of the month, and 1 week out of the month they all fly in and they have their meetings or op review strategy sessions, so they're all together. And you touched upon this in the beginning. People that are companies that are cramped for space don't have to have that large capital expense to relocate or expand, because you
That's
can.
right.
I mean, it's
That's right.
case by case basis, but it's. I think it's certainly here to stay. This isn't going away.
I think there's a business case for at least a hybrid approach. So, Tony, what do we have coming up next for our next episode?
We're going to have our first guest. His name is Brian Marshall. It's kind of a unique role, but he's a VCIO, or virtual CIO. So he acts as that kind of remote CIO for many different companies. And his expertise is around security, disaster recovery, really experienced when it comes to networking and strategy. He's got a lot to offer.
Well, it sounds like a great discussion. I can't wait for our next episode.
Well, thank you all for spending time with us today, and be sure to join us next time when we have Brian. And if you haven't yet, please hit that subscribe button and share the love with your friends and colleagues, and look forward to seeing you again soon.
Take care.
That's right. And then, like, if you look at today's focus topic, I that up. Let me cut.
Cut.
Yeah, like camera adjustment there.
Sorry. Since you were doing a new take, I thought I'd.
Well, today's topic hits this,
Like constipation. I feel like I have gas.
today's
What if you
topic
make fun of
focuses.
what if you make fun of me? What if you make fun of me and say, "Hey Tom, perfect segue.